right, well, that was actually a great segue into our next panel, which is all going to be about in-venue entertainment, getting your fans engaged when they're actually at the game, whether that be through your main video board or your mobile app. We're going to touch on both of those things. Before we get started, though, I do want to thank our Venue Initiative sponsors for sponsoring this particular session. You'll see their logos at the top. They are Bexel, Cisco, Clearcom, Crown Castle, EVS, Grass Valley, Panasonic, and Sony. They make what we do from a venue perspective possible, and what we do is host a Venue Technology Summit annually, as well as several regional events throughout the country that really focus on venue technology and control room workflows. Our next event is next month. This is my shameless plug time. In Denver, Colorado, at Sports Authority Field at Mile High on June 23rd. So if anybody's interested in attending, let me know and I'll get you signed up for that. All right, without further ado, I'd like to introduce my panelists. Actually, I'm going to have them introduce themselves. Just say who you are, where you work, and a little bit about what you do there. I'll start with Pattie.
Okay. Hi, I'm Pattie Orr. I'm the Vice President for IT and also the Dean of University Libraries at Baylor, and I am the Chief Information Officer, and I'm not in video production or athletics, but I have a very strong partnership with our athletics folks.
Jeremy Riley, I'm with Panasonic, Collegiate Sales Manager.
Glen Marts with Daktronics. I'm in sales here in the Southeast region.
James Stellpflug with EVS, manufacturer of video replay servers and technology for live production, and I handle product marketing for the company.
Great, thanks guys. And Pattie. All right, we're going to start off with a short video from Pattie. We actually, really to highlight the recent renovation that's been done to McLean Stadium out at Baylor University. Fun little time lapse. That might just be coming from you.
This last year has been quite a year. I'll tell you, with our first year in our new McLean Stadium, and I will make a small correction. It was not a renovation. It was actually building, as you saw, from the river and the ground up to bring a brand new stadium to Baylor University. And you know, I've been a part of several stadium renovations, and my heart goes out to A&M because I'm going to tell you, it is not easy, especially from the IT point of view. It is not fun. It is painful. It's in phases. It's really difficult, and it was quite a blessing in my own career 3 years ago when we learned that our regents had voted that we would build the new stadium, because we had a chance to really say, what do we do for fan engagement? And this is a great picture of the daytime view of the stadium. And the stadium is magnificent, but as we were planning 3 years ago, you know, we couldn't just say, okay, what is happening 3 years ago, let's make that happen in the stadium. We had to say, what will be on the cutting edge in 3 years? And we were actually at our last stadium, Floyd Casey Stadium, for over 60 years. So what will last? We wanted to build an infrastructure that could support every kind of electronics, throw as much as possible fiber toward it, everything to make it so that it could do what was possible in 3 years and then maybe in 63 years. So just to give you a little snapshot of what the stadium's like from this photo, we do have 45,000 seats. We also have a berm that seats 1,000. It's 860,000 square feet altogether. It has all the wonderful, magnificent things that you would think. It has actually a Daktronics board. It's beautiful. I understand from our folks it's actually 5,000 square feet. To us, it's huge among us. It's beautiful. The clarity's wonderful. We also have 2 ribbon boards, and I guess I'm learning at this conference that's a challenge to a lot of folks in video production, but we have 2 of them, and they're quite interesting. We did a huge increase in premium seats, 39 suites, 79 loge boxes, 1,200 club seats, a new Club Corp Baylor Club that's operating there year-round now with all types of events. It's really fantastic and great. Our production people do a terrific job of all of the material that's put there. We actually had over 400 miles of fiber that went into the facility because we wanted to prepare, as I mentioned, for the future. Some of the things that are included, we have 20 closets for the technology throughout the stadium. We have a very comprehensive distributed antenna system for cellular, 99% reliability on our connectivity there that was done outside testing. It's really terrific. We also have high definition, high density Wi-Fi throughout the stadium that's very reliable, 118 security cameras. It just goes on and on. Everything in the stadium, the elevators, the security cameras, everything is connected by technology. So it was really quite an event to get it all together. So if we go to the next photo, I want to show you that I was a little skeptical initially when we began to dream about the new stadium to say, let's make it so that every fan can direct their own game. We knew that everyone at Baylor, at least, just is so in love with their phone, you know, so in love with their tablet. They kind of twitch if they're not connected for about 2 minutes, you know, it's just phenomenal. So 3 years ago, we were saying, can we make it so that we can really bring high quality video to these mobile devices? And at that time, we did a lot of visiting of other stadiums. We did a lot of talking to the technology companies. A lot of that was in development. It sort of existed, but it wasn't reliable. And I'm happy to tell you that 3 years later, when we rolled out this year, we had reliable video to the handhelds for all fans in the stadium. It was just terrific. And this photo of one of my staff took this photo the first game on August 31st. And to me, it really shows why it's important. You know, for a while I was like, people, just watch the game. Just watch the big board and just watch the game, you know? But you know, when this is up in our media lounge for our media that are visiting and working at the game, the media folks, and look how clear it is on your in your handheld. You know, it's just really phenomenal. And so it has been very popular. We actually aggregated this all together in an app that we call the Baylor Endgame. It's available if you're interested for Android and for Apple. We've had over 30,000 downloads of the app. We've had almost 500,000 views of the homepage, which we're excited about. It's very popular, and the 2 areas that are the most popular are at the game and also our videos. So we just feel like that this has been a great addition. We have 6 cameras in our control room upstairs. We have fiber that goes down directly into our main distribution frame closet for the network, and the live camera feeds from 5 cameras as well as 1 that's the production board are then available to our app, which is just tremendous. The major plays of the game are all cut automatically through this app, and the fans can watch the major plays from the 5 different angles as they go. And we also send our radio show, the John Morris Show, as audio, so that if people want to watch the production board or listen to the audio, they can do that as well. If you want to go to the next slide. One thing that I wanted just to mention in this area is that, you know, if we'd just put in Wi-Fi and cellular, that would have been a whole lot of money, and it would have been good, and people would have been, you know, doing some social media and been all over the place doing things. But I really felt, you know, bringing the app together was a way that really focused the fans on our message and let us use analytics to know what they were using, how they were using it, how we could use it for sponsorships and for our own promotion of our program. And one thing we knew that no one under 26 would need, but a lot of others would be a little bit of support. And so we actually did hire a team from our Hankamer School of Business. These are all students, this is not all of them, there were 20, but they are all students that are in our MIS program. And we have about 100 students in that program. We advertise similar to the way that A&M mentioned when they were talking about their students. We had about 40 that applied, and we hired 20, and they were terrific. They worked with us in the stadium. We positioned them in the concourses to help fans get connected to Wi-Fi and also to answer questions about the app and shows fans about the app. And then our athletics folks gave them a little bit of customer service training, so it was a brand new stadium to point people where to go. So the next photo shows someone working, one of our Wi-Fi coaches working with a fan. And one thing I'll just mention quickly is this gave us also real-time feedback about how things were going in the stadium. As we had fans come up and work with our coaches and tell them, I'm having trouble in 101, I'm not able to get connected, we could dispatch a technician up to 101 to take a quick look to see, wow, is there something going on with one of the access points, or is this really a user issue? And imagine the surprise when the Wi-Fi coach, you know, came up to help someone who had been on social media saying, this Wi-Fi isn't working, and, you know, they didn't have Wi-Fi turned on, or, you know, whatever it is that was the problem, actually coming up and helping. So that was really a great thing for us. And if you'll go to the next slide. So we have a little video of the app. I don't know if you want to show that now or
Sure.
Okay, we'll just show you that. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. The one last thing I'll mention about the app that was probably one of our biggest surprises is how much it's used not during the football game, you know, not in venue. It's used so much for people looking up the schedule, looking up the stats, looking at the player bios, looking at all kinds of information about the game. And we did also find that we had huge surges in use even at our out-of-town games because the fans watching at home wanted to look up information, wanted to watch the stats and see the information that we had available. So we've been very pleased with the results.
Great, thank you, Pattie. I'd like to unpack actually quite a few things that you mentioned and invite our other panelists to kind of chime in and give their 2 cents. One of the things that stood out to me was how you said you want it to be cutting edge for the future. Mm-hmm. You don't want what's, you know, up to date now. You want something that's going to sustain you 1 year, 5 year, 10 years down the road. I'd like to bring in my other panelists and ask you, how do you work with customers to future-proof their facilities? Not just deliver what they need now, but what they might need in a couple years from now.
I think from our standpoint, we get in very early. The video boards, scoreboard systems, you know, cameras and things, those are all obviously updating and changing every day. What we try to do is we really try to, there is a balance between what is considered old technology and what is going to be considered, you know, future technology. when you're working with a university or with a customer, they want to get a new large video board, would be from my perspective, a large video screen. They want a tight resolution, but they also don't want something that doesn't have a track record. They don't want something that's new, that may not work how they envision it to work, because they have jobs that they're trying to do, and what they don't want to do is in 5 years make it more difficult. So what we really try to do is we try to work within the parameters that they set. They want a certain size screen. You go in and you work with them. You give them the pros and cons of what you can offer, what the differences are, and really, I think the biggest challenge in our job is really working with the customers to meet their visions, but also not overpromise things that probably aren't there yet. I think that's the biggest challenge for us, or working in this industry, is that everyone wants to be the first to do stuff, but you don't want to get it to where it's too early and where they do something that it's probably not there yet and they have trouble and issues long term.
Yeah, I'll expand on that a little bit further. One of the things, since I am regionally focused, is that I've been able to develop these relationships with the Rick Bagby's, the Andy Blantons, many of the panelists that you've seen here. I've got a great working relationship with these guys. And usually when we start talking about the facility upgrades, it's coming from the facility athletic directors, assistant athletic directors. It's coming from the senior associates. But it's very important to include the video group as well, because they're the ones that we have to understand the workflow. We need to understand how they're going to handle the ribbon boards, as you mentioned. Understand what they want to accomplish along with the larger size, the new scoreboards, the new display technology. So I think it's very important that you come together and collaborate as a team over multiple times, finding out what the true vision is, not only today, but long term.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it was said well on the last panel as well. We're seeing shifts in the facilities. The fact that a control room was put in 10 years ago or 20 years ago to service one thing, a big board. But now those same control rooms, the existing infrastructure in many cases, is being asked to serve broadcasts, like they said in the last panel, or deliver content down to the mobile phones. So you can take an approach of saying for each one of those needs, you launch an extra control room, or you launch extra equipment and extra encoders and extra gear to serve that. Or you can take an approach of expecting your existing infrastructure, the equipment you put in place to serve all of them, and make sure that you can do it in a cohesive way. It's content, it's inventory, and the brand of the university, the brand of that stadium, that event is important. And it all has to play well together, and that has to be able to serve them both live at the game, and as they said earlier, everyone carries around that smart TV in their pocket, and they want to see content there. The young generation expects it. And so you have to engage them on the big boards, you have to engage them down on their phone, and you have to make that storyline fit with everything. So the tools have to leverage that inventory to be able to do that. So.
Yeah, I like what she said earlier about, why don't you just watch the game? But the truth is, God, I'm going to make myself sound so old, but the kids these days and their mobile phones and their tablets, you look around a venue now and the screens are all out the whole time. It sounds like you really have to work with the team, not just on the technology side of it, but also on the video philosophy side to figure out what they want out of a big board, from a Panasonic or a Daktronics, or what they're looking for from their, mobile phone or their tablet, EVS's integration with Cisco and all of that.
Yeah, I think you're seeing different trends, and talking about the wiring the stadium for Wi-Fi and infrastructure and all of that, that started years ago from allowing people to just get access to the internet, to be able to tweet or go on Facebook. Then it started getting to the engaged apps, seeing live streams of content. But again, I think that's the argument you see, is people aren't going to sit in the live venue and stare at their phone watching a camera feed during the live game and just streaming it live, because you're not really enjoying the game to its full extent. But to come back when you're not in your seat, you're out by the concessions, or you're moving around the venues, which continue to evolve and have extra space around them, having video on demand content access, going back and reviewing the play from multiple angles, and how you engage them throughout that entire life cycle of the event is what's changing. So.
I think the other part of that too is the fact that the event itself is competing with the broadcast. You need to get people to buy the ticket. You need to get people to come to the event and pay the parking, pay the concessions, and have a better experience in the venue than what they can get at home. And all of these other pieces, the mobile app, the stats, out-of-town game scores, et cetera, that goes to the experience.
That's right, because, you know, my TV at home, it's high definition. It's pretty darn good, you know? And when you come to the venue, you want to feel like I can at least go see the major plays of the game replayed when I want to. You know, that's a benefit from having my season ticket. And so, you know, it does have to add that. When we create, I think an aggregating app is critically important as well, because it brings together all of the pieces of the experience. You know, we have our social media there, we have keepsakes that we have these great photos that we put together like a homecoming mum, that people can take a picture and put the mum on the person or put the helmet on the head. You know, there's just all kinds of fun things you can do that keep fans having fun, and that can work for Baylor Nation, who's not there, but there need to be some things that are special just for those who are in venue, and it creates, you know, a lot of excitement. I also want to add that by aggregating all of that into an app, you can use then your analytics to really determine what's up with your fans and where are the sponsors that would love to see how many hits this page is having. You know, how can I really do that? Now, we don't get down to the person, you know, what's this person doing, but in aggregate, you know, we can look at it and know what percentage were on which type of apps, you know, how long were they dwelling on these different things. And what is, to me, fascinating is that our social media, we connect it all in there, and we can look at this and see how much they're going to the app to use the social media, even when they're not at the game. It's just amazing.
And I think with the technology and the Wi-Fi, as we talked about, when you first put that in, it was to allow them to download content. And now you're seeing this social activity outbound, right?
Right.
When they're at the game, they want to make noise that they're there. They want to communicate with their friends and socialize it and do those videos. And we're seeing trends now from our side where that content is recorded from their phones. They're uploading it, and we're bringing that back down in so it can be put on the big boards. So the large control room can put it there, or it could go into an ESPN3 broadcast or an SEC network broadcast, as an example. Or you can bring that and put it back into that federated app where the fans are watching for highlights. They may also want to see certain collections of content that came from other fans, because it extends the experience. And so that's where we're seeing those trends shift.
And then we integrate it with the big board, because everybody's in there, they're doing their social media, they're uploading their photos, they're putting the keepsakes on, and then ever so often, up on the big board comes some of these things, and that gets everyone really
They
excited.
participate in the game.
We also can do, you know, push notifications, so if we want to tell fans something that's coming up. We also do some great polls where we'll say, you know, well, what music would you like to hear when the team comes back on the field? And all during the first half, they can be answering that question and watching the percentages. There's a real connection that it gives us that we didn't have before. It just adds to all the other parts of the stadium.
No, absolutely, and it all just goes back to that comment I said before. It's the fan experience in the game.
I think this really brings in the IT perspective. Number of venues that I've spoken to say it's important to get the IT and it's important to get your IT department involved. But there's always that question of when. Do you bring them in from the beginning? You can speak to your experience there.
Are you asking what people do or what should happen?
What should happen? I think we all know what people do.
Well, I will say that at Baylor, we've always had a great relationship with our athletics folks and work closely together, and I was brought in from the beginning, and my network director, which was fabulous. All through the last 3 years, I get panic calls from CIOs going, oh Lord, help me. They're doing this, they're this far down the road. It's the first time I've been able to even talk with them. And I really think, just like someone mentioned, you know, bringing the video producing people in to envision what's needed in equipment, you need to bring your network director, your CIO in to help you figure out how are you going to offer public Wi-Fi to all these people? How are you going to make sure the fiber is there? I mean, at Baylor, we had a lot of challenges to do this because our stadium is on the river, so we had to bring the network under the river. We tunneled under the river. I was really glad when it popped up on the other side. I just want to mention that. It was really one of my best days at Baylor, you know. So we tunneled under it, we connected it, but we didn't just build for McLean Stadium. We said, we're bringing enough fiber that we can run a whole channel of fiber down the row there. And just one example, we've just hosted the NCAA championship games for tennis at Baylor. And so the same infrastructure that was brought from McLean, we could run that fiber very easily down to the tennis facility to do live streaming cameras, for that event. Now, we have 12 streaming cameras for that. So, that takes planning, that takes the big picture. So, the CIOs, we're kind of geeky and, but we don't bite, I would really recommend that you do get them there from the beginning. And also, I've had lots of tours at McLean, and I wanted to mention to you, if any of you would be, of course, welcome to come. We've had lots of schools, we've had Madison Square Gardens, we've had all kinds of groups come to tour, but your CIOs might want to come and visit, so, I'd be happy to do that if I can help anyone.
To second what Pattie said was, from our end, from the end user, we really want to get those people involved. I think the biggest, headache from our end is when we have a plan, we put that plan into motion, and then the guy that's using the system or trying to expand on the system can't get it to work the way that he wants it to work. A lot of these IT guys have been there for a long time, have a certain way of doing things, and if they're not, talked to and not discussed with, the plan, then when it gets all done, they're relearning, they're having to teach the people how they've done it for years a new way. And that's frustrating. One of the most frustrating things for the staff is having to do things different from how they've always done it. So bringing people on early has always been a big help. The biggest thing I've noticed, in this work area and bringing everyone together is there's a lot of people in the boat. As you heard the Texas A&M guys, they have 65 people on staff, and that's a big staff, and if they're not happy with how you're doing it, at the end of the day, you're probably not going to get a great review when the IT guy comes up to Baylor from your school and they're getting complaints because it doesn't work this way, it doesn't work that way. It's not that it can't, it's just not how it was set up. So really involving those guys, from my perspective early on, getting the full dream, getting everything out there, and then when you actually put it into implementation, then everyone's happy.
Yeah, I think to go one step further on that, it's a great example. You got to have that strategy of fan engagement. What's the plan in that venue? And you can see great case studies on successful venues that have a strategy far enough out to say, we know what we want to do. Let's bring the different departments together, whether it be IT, whether it be the control room and or broadcasting arms, as well as the marketing and the people that have to make sure that inventory is going to represent the brand. And things like Nebraska are great examples where they had a clear strategy early on, how they wanted to engage their fans, where around the venue, not just in the venue, but around the entire proximity leading up to it, a multi-venue strategy. And they put in place the facility and the infrastructure to support those needs and how they engage those fans down to their apps and in those environments throughout the entire life cycle of the fans.
Yeah, one of the things that Texas A&M is doing as part of their, multi-phase renovation to Kyle Field, they've got a number of displays outside the venue as people are parking and coming up for further fan enhancement, fan engagement, upcoming events, whatever. So really getting them from the time that they approach in their car all the way through the event and all the way back home as well.
Well, and I think that support is critical. I think it's very important to think about, you're going to add all of this new technology that you haven't had before in a venue. The fans are going to need some support. There's going to need to be consistency in the performance, and to have that consistency, you've got to have live feedback coming from the support folks to you. One thing that we did with our students that we hired as the Wi-Fi coaches is we did train them, of course, in advance, and Extreme Networks worked with us and did some training for them. They've used some coaching in the NFL stadiums, in some of the venues the Patriots do, and a few others. I know the Super Bowl used Wi-Fi coaching this year. But in a university setting, it's a little bit different. We figured out for ourselves what we needed. But those people were so critical for us because they were helping people, and even if people got out and were having a bad experience, they knew they could get help. Help was available if they wanted it. And then we used, I thought, a pretty interesting technique, which is the WhatsApp chat, which is kind of a group chat, so that all of the coaches could talk to one another to give feedback. Then we had 2 of our IT staff were the head coaches for the group, so that we weren't annoying to death the network engineers with every little thing that came up from the coaches. It was a structured thing. But I think our quality, because you have to have this consistency and quality in the production area, in the video board, in the app, in the Wi-Fi, in the cellular, everything has to have great quality, and it takes a cast of thousands to make that happen. And you were talking about how everybody had done everything before. We've always had a few IT folks on site during a football game because, we scanned tickets, we had some Wi-Fi, things like that. But this was an exponential increase. And so looking to put that infrastructure there so that you can arrange that you have enough people on the ground. Because if something goes wrong, you don't have time to get help immediately. By the time you call someone in, the game is over, So you have to plan for that. And there's some expense in that, but it all goes toward having that consistency of the performance, the consistency for the fan engagement, everything being consistent and working, as it should.
Are there any questions? All right, I'd like to transition a little bit over to the video boards and specifically to Jeremy and Glenn. Obviously, a facility like McLean Stadium, Kyle Field, it's probably going to require a similar approach to a professional stadium, but not all collegiate venues are on that level. What are some facts to consider, ranging from the top of the top to maybe the lower D1, D2, D3 guys? What are some facts to consider when selecting a video board? Is it all about resolution, size? I guess, how do you approach that with your customers?
Sure. One of the things that I have the conversation with the customers is, really understanding and making sure that they understand where they're at today. Where do they fit in with the rest of their peers that they play? What is their goals for the future? It might be something that they plan for the Southern Conference, for example, today, but their goal in 5 years is to make the move to the Sun Belt. Well, that's a big leap, and we have to understand what their goal as a university and an institution is from an athletics perspective, and help guide them in making proper selections for that long term. So the last thing we want to do is put in a new display that gets them in the upper third of the Southern Conference, but in 2 years they're going to make that leap to the Sun Belt, and now all of a sudden they're not even close to the lowest member there. So understanding what they want to do for the future is key, and then guiding them through that process, and then working through the facility side of things as to what is the proper technology, what is the proper additional back-end equipment, what is the proper budget for their video production equipment, et cetera. I mean, who would have envisioned that an institution like Georgia Tech has a $250,000 control room? And the amount of quality things that Andy does from that room, it's just mind-blowing what he does with that limited budget. So it can be done. It doesn't have to be a $5 million control room. It can be done. We just need to make sure that the proper steps are taken in the planning stages to accomplish that.
Yeah, to expand on that, what we try to focus on and do early on is set the expectation. You have to know what the parameters are for the facility, for the universities. You really want to focus on, what's their goals, what can be met, what can't be met. One of the largest things that we focus on in providing a video board is working in that, because renovations, I would say a new build I would consider rare and a rare opportunity in football, and to build one on campus is even more rare. But to be involved there and really just set the expectation. Renovations, obviously, you have steel structure, you have areas that are already set, buildings around the stadiums and things, and what you want to do is you want to guide and direct people to what the students don't want to pay for, what the tax dollars don't want to pay for, is something that when they go to the stadium they don't see. So to spend hundreds and millions of dollars on steel structure doesn't make a lot of sense. So you try to go in and really guide them of, hey, here's what your existing structure can hold. Let's work within those parameters to get the most bang for your buck. You want to get a a 50 by 100-foot video screen. But to fill that gap, it may be better for you to go with a certain product, a 20 millimeter product, a 16 millimeter product, and then from there, that's when you really start working in the parameters of what they have. To go in and paint a picture of something that's not attainable is really one of the biggest things to avoid, in our industry and in our business. Is you don't want to, paint this huge picture and then you go in and you have the budget and the space to do something much less. So really spending time on that and understanding the facility. McLean Stadium, they have an end zone, an open end zone that doesn't have seating next to it. So you may put a lamp board there versus an SMD board because it's more cost efficient, one, and you're not looking at the video board at 180 degrees. You're not walking up the bleachers looking at a screen where a louver may get in the way. So, just really spending time with the vision. Again, it's early, it's preparing, it's knowing what they're looking for and working and extending from there.
Great. One last question for me for all four of you. What aspects of the in-venue entertainment do you see likely to change in the next year to 5 years? What would you like to see different in fan entertainment in the venue? What do you kind of think is the future of this particular subject? Just a nice open-ended question to end the
Comes to me first. All right.
panel.
I mean, what would I like to see, or what do we see coming?
Both.
Part of both. I mean, you're seeing venues not only just reinvest in more seating and making them larger and putting big video boards, but you're seeing also the wraparounds, all of the other things around the experience when you're physically at the venue. And I think that, again, how you engage with that fan, how you get content to them when they're standing in front of a display screen or when they're in a lounge or in a restaurant or concessions and wherever they are, it's about how to keep them in that cohesive story, how to get them excited about the game they're at, how to, obviously you want to monetize them. So how do you get them also buying things and staying there longer and enjoying the game, making it a destination event to come to. So I think the technology has to fit well into that and go. And that's where smart ways to use the mobile phones, the apps, in terms of getting them there, keeping them engaged through that whole life cycle. I think in reality, it's not having them on their device while they're watching the game, but smart ways to have them be notified of stuff, for them to know when there's a good highlight or a good set of content or seat upgrades or things that they can do. That's how you can alert them to that. And then how to make it a more cohesive experience. So when they're on their phone, but they're standing in front of concessions, are there ways for their phone to engage with the screen in front of you? So they put their phone back away and immerse themselves in that experience. So I think how those technologies work better together is some of the key trends that we'll see shifting in those venues.
Yeah, the other part of that too is the adding additional displays, whether it be in venue or out on the street. It could be a traffic display, letting people know the proper places to park. It could be the street furniture type displays that I'd mentioned at Kyle Field. Having the additional pieces to the puzzle brings it all together and engages the fans from the time they arrive to the time they leave.
From my standpoint, I'm very interested to see what the next step is. At some point, the biggest screen is going to be reached. You're going to run out of real estate for a large video board. You're going to have a finite amount of space to put advertisements, video displays, technology. The ribbon boards are a huge deal right now. They are complicated because they do have a maximum amount of height to deal with and to expand, thousands or hundreds of feet around facilities. But, I'm very interested to see what the next step is. What is the next technology? We're at SMD screens outdoor now that wasn't around 5, 6, 7 years ago. We're at different ways of shouldering video screens to get away from secondary lens caps that are on outdoor LEDs and outdoor lamps. So it's very interesting. You're running up to a time frame to where you're running out of that finite space, that space that is 10 by 20 or 20 by 50 or 50 by 200. But the question from my end is what's next, and what rabbit hole we're going to go down next with the implementation of that technology with the social media and things from that area.
Well, I think, it's all about the mobile. I think that the mobile is definitely going to expand what we can do. But, just like email, we have these spam filters and all in email. But what is spam? Because one man's, trash is another man's treasure. I really think we'll put a lot of our effort is targeting the message. And that all really leads back to analytics, to be able to understand your fan, to segment so that messaging goes properly to fans that are interested in what you have to say. We certainly do want to monetize and bring revenue using our app, but if you don't do the proper message, or you over message, or you make yourself annoying, that doesn't work. So I think we'll be working on those things. We are very interested in beacons. But we also think a beacon can quickly become spam, So we're looking at how can we use those strategically in ways that enhance the experience, that fans welcome that, and it's kind of about that relationship, the relationship with the fan and what they're looking for. But those are definitely things that we're looking at. And then, of course, at Baylor, expanding to all sports, because at this moment, we have that comprehensive ability to use the mobile in our football stadium, but we want to bring that to each of our venues.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of our program, so thank you very much.